Welcome to the Female Property Expert podcast. This is where we dive into the world of property investing and we provide you with insights on what you're going to need to succeed. Now, I'm your host, Emma Morby, and in today's episode, we're going to talk about how to invest in property safely. We'll explore why some property investments go belly up and, more importantly, how you can avoid these pitfalls. Now, property investing can be a fantastic way of building wealth. I know this firsthand, but it's not without its risks. So if you're new to the world of property, it's essential that you understand these risks and how to mitigate them. So today, I'm going to share some practical advice on how to invest safely and successfully. So first of all, let's look at why some property investments go belly up. And you need to understand these reasons because it's the first step to you avoiding this situation yourself. So, number one is lack of research. So many novice investors dive into property investment without doing adequate research. They might buy a property in an area that's declining, for instance, or they might buy a property that's overvalued in that particular area, or they may find a property that's in a poor rental demand area. And all of this will have a negative impact whether you come to sell or rent the property at the end. Next is over leveraging, and I see this a lot. So over leveraging means borrowing too much money to finance your property investment. So when the housing market is booming, it can magnify your profits. But also on the flip side, when it slows down, you can find yourself in a financial mess, which is what happened in 2008 and which is what happened most recently during COVID times when interest rates increased so high that a number of landlords were not only having their rent and having to top up to pay for their mortgage, but they also wanted to exit quickly and they couldn't because they weren't in a position to financially do so. Number three, we're looking at poor cash flow management. Cash flow is king in property investment, and you're going to need some of it behind you. Many investors fail, especially at the start, because they don't accurately account for ongoing expenses like maintenance or tax or void periods, for instance. And I often see a number of early investors who will over-egg these figures on their cash flow because they want them to look good. And the simple fact is, you need to be realistic. Another one I see is underestimating renovation costs. So renovation projects often go over budget and often go over time. So underestimating these costs will really quickly erode any profits that you have in that particular deal. So getting fixed quotes or getting quotes that are almost fixed, as in 90% of it is fixed, will help you knowing that what you're going to do is going to be within budget. Also, have a contingency plan in place. And that will be financially and also the exit strategy that we talk about. Market fluctuations also affect some new and some experienced investors, unfortunately. So the property market has a cycle and prices can fluctuate. And investors who aren't prepared for downturns can suffer significant losses. But also, if you don't understand the property cycle, and it's something we teach early on in our training programs, if you don't understand that property cycle, then how do you know when to get in and get out and when to hold? And finally, I come across a lack of diversification. So basically, people put all of their money into one type of property, one location. And this can be really risky. That location may become flooded, for instance. If you're doing service accommodation, it may become flooded with other SA providers. And so in time, you have to lower your rates to be competitive and subsequently you lower your profit margins. You may, for instance, put all your money into one property and there is a downturn or COVID happens, or hopefully it won't happen again, but COVID happens and you're faced with a situation where you don't have any profit in that particular property anymore. And you're in a position where you're about to lose money because you put everything you have in one property. So now I've shared with you why some investments go belly up, I want to share with you how to avoid these pitfalls. Now, thorough research is an absolute necessity. Before buying any property, research the area thoroughly. Look at property prices, rental demand, local amenities, the demographic of the local area, any future development plans that are on the horizon. And websites like Rightmove and Zoopla can provide valuable insights into property trends within the UK market, and they give you this information for free. Next, I would suggest sound financial planning. So develop a really solid financial plan. Determine how much you can actually afford to invest without over leveraging yourself, keeping some money back in your pocket. Make sure you have a buffer for unexpected expenses, and this should be between 10 and 15% of any project. Use tools like mortgage calculators to understand your financial commitments fully. How much are you going to have to pay back if the interest rate is 6%? And budget it at 6%. And now you might be paying 3%, but make sure you budget it at 6%, so you know, worst case scenario, what you're going to have to pay back on a monthly basis. Cash flow management, we spoke about the negatives to this, but always keep a close eye on your cash flow. Ensure that your rental income covers all of the expenses and leaves you with a profit. You do not want to be in a position where your profit is £30. That is extremely low. You want to be in a position where your profit is 25% of whatever that rental income is. Remember to factor in void periods, especially for rental properties. And this is basically where your property might be vacant for a period of time. Perhaps there's a turnover of tenants. Perhaps you need to do some maintenance work, so you can't have your tenant in there at the time. But be prepared for void periods. Accurately budgeting for renovation costs. So get multiple quotes for renovation work, and always include a contingency budget on every single quote. It's wise to add, I reckon, an extra 10 to 20% on your renovation budget overall. This will highlight any unforeseen expenses and be in a position to pay them and still make a profit at the end. Now, we spoke about market cycles, but you have to be aware of the property market cycle. Don't be tempted to buy at the peak of the market. Instead, look for opportunities maybe during a downturn where prices are low, or where you know you can get a property at a below market value and a true below market value. And finally, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Diversify your investments across different property types and locations. This way, if one market takes a hit, you have the others to fall back on. And this might be that you have buy-to-lets, it might be that you have HMOs, it might be that you have rent-to-rents, it might be that you have serviced accommodation. Whatever it may be, make sure you diversify your portfolio. When you're first starting out, you might just stick to one strategy. We teach this during our program. You will learn that we teach all 6 strategies, you pick one, and then you go on to do various different strategies. You've learned the knowledge to be able to do all 6 different ones. You pick one, you feel comfortable within it, and then you start doing more different strategies. This gives you the diversification that you actually need. So some practical steps for safe property investing. I want to make sure that you understand, as an experienced property investor myself, what practical steps can be taken. So start small is my first bit of advice. If you're new to property investing, start with a smaller, more manageable property. This will allow you to learn the ropes without taking on a massive risk. You need to build a strong team around you. Surround yourself with experts. This will include, property agents, a reliable mortgage broker, competent solicitors, trustworthy contractors. Now, their expertise can save you time, money, and stress. And yes, you may have to pay a little bit more towards it. But in your first few property deals, this is important because you're actually learning the ropes. Get educated is my next one. Take advantage of educational resources. There are many books, online courses, seminars, property events that you can go to. Some are paid, some are free. Educate yourself. It will help you make an informed decision. We as a company offer a program that you can join, and we teach you everything. We give you everything you're ever going to need to know. And we do that because education is key. Once you have that knowledge, once you understand the property cycle, once you understand the strategy, once you have all the legal documents that you're going to need, you are in the strongest position to make that jump into property investment. I'd also use professional property management. So if managing properties isn't your strength, and some people like myself don't enjoy it, consider getting a rental management company in to manage it. They're going to handle tenant issues, maintenance, and kind of any other day-to-day operations. This will allow you to focus on growing your portfolio. Now, you will pay a price for this, and it may be 10 to 12% of the monthly income. But the difference is it will be hands off. You're not going to be in a position where you're the person being rung at 3 o'clock in the morning because the tenant has locked himself out. Unless that's what you want. You might want that. Regular reviews is another one which I strongly advise. So you have to regularly look at your property investment portfolio, assess your property's performances, make adjustments as needed. Maybe that buy to let is no longer in a position where it's actually earning you 25% profit. It's only earning you 7% profit. So actually, let's look at a different strategy. Maybe serviced accommodation would suit this particular one, and I would earn a 50 to 80% profit instead. Look at different strategies all the time. You may also find that perhaps the property could be refinanced and you could get a better mortgage rate, which will help lower the costs of your monthly payment. Or worst case scenario, the property isn't performing at all and you need to sell it. And finally, I would say stay informed. So keep up with the latest news and trends in the property market, and don't necessarily stick to the news. The news is very scaremongery. Go to places like Savills, the people who are in the property industry who will share with you what their predictions are, what their forecasts are. Frank Knight are another company that will share that. Rightmove will produce reports. The housing sector will produce reports that you can read and understand. And ultimately, this is going to help you anticipate changes and adapt your strategies accordingly. You can subscribe to, they have property investment blogs. You can join local investment groups. You can go to networking events. There's so many things you can do to stay ahead of the curve. But what I would say is watching the news probably isn't the best solution, because often they'll tell you something and they'll dramatize it and it isn't actually fact. So finally, I'd like to give you ideas of where you can get free advice and tools, because some of you can't afford to be on a property training program. And so if I can give you free advice and tools to help you get started, it will take you longer to get to your end goal, but ultimately it will mean you can start your journey. So first of all, online portals, property portals. These are things like Rightmove, Zoopla, On the Market, are great for researching properties and market trends. Use their tools to compare prices. You can analyze rental yields, you can track market changes, and you can do all of this for free. Mortgage calculators are another really useful tool. So using online mortgage calculators to understand your borrowing limits and monthly payments, it can help you budget accurately and avoid kind of the over leveraging that we see on a regular basis. You could also join networking groups. So, property networking groups, you can have them on social media, you could have them face to face. There are places within Facebook and LinkedIn that you can go and join. And networking with experienced investors can provide valuable insights and support. What I would say is these aren't places where you're going to pitch deals and you're going to pitch what you've got and look for investors. This is where you're going to learn. You're going to listen and learn from more experienced investors who tend to go to these places. Property investment books. So books such as mine, which is The Simple Guide to Property Investing, sorry. You can buy it on Amazon and it will give great advice to new investors. It will teach you all about different types of strategies, all about borrowing and how you borrow safely. These resources can give you a really solid foundation into the property investment principles overall. Now, they're not going to give you the details that you're going to need to be able to go through, for instance, on a training program, but they will give you the starting point on all of the knowledge you're going to need to be able to kind of pick and choose safely what types of strategies you want to do. And finally, what you're actually doing now, podcasts and webinars. So listen to property investment podcasts, attend webinars or events. These can keep you up to date on the latest trends, provide practical advice from experienced seasonal investors, and it can also help build your confidence because you're learning. This podcast you're listening to now, you are learning as you go. You're picking up tips, tricks, things that you can do to help educate yourself. So property investing can be a rewarding journey if done correctly. I stand by this because I'm living it now. By understanding the risks and taking steps to mitigate them, you can safely invest and build a successful property portfolio. Remember, thorough research, sound financial planning, and continuous learning are the best tools for success. I learn every single day something new. So even though I may have some experience and I have done multi-million pound investments, I also find that I push myself to learn things new. Thank you for joining me today on the Female Property Expert podcast. I hope you found this episode helpful and informative. If you do have any questions or any topics you'd like me to cover in future episodes, feel free to reach out to me. Until next time, happy investing and stay safe.